Thanks, Jeannie and PRSA, and for having us in our building. It's really wonderful. It's also wonderful to see so many of our students out here tonight. We are really fortunate. We have a really excellent panel, and I thought what we would do is have each one of them introduce themselves and what they do, and we'll start with Ayana.
Okay, my name's Ayana Ivery. I'm currently employed at Hack the Hood, which is a nonprofit organization based out of Oakland. We teach 16 to 25-year-olds how to get into the tech industry. We start with Python and data science. My background is mainly in graphic design and communication, so I'm like a visual communicator. But my actual degree, and I majored in, is fashion design. And all of that has helped me make information beautiful and appealing for people to read and just want to engage in. So that's the quick and short version.
The elevator pitch.
Yes.
That's right. Charlene.
I'm Charlene Gage. I'm a director of media strategy at Hotwire, the agency, not the travel agency, but PR agency. And I specifically focus in on seeing what's going on within the earned media landscape. So what journalists care about, what's trending in the news, where are stories going and developing, and helping clients from startups to enterprise tech to Fortune 500s and nonprofits fit into those trending stories and help develop those narratives. So super exciting. Came from San José State, majoring in PR, and was able to dive straight into the land of PR.
I'm Robyn Blum. I'm a senior director at Cisco. I run what we call business critical communications, which is everything crisis and issues and reputation management for the company. I have a small team, there's about 4 of us total, but we work in global communications at large. I'm a San Jose State grad as well, PR major, undeclared for 2 years coming in, didn't know what I wanted to do, and then took I guess it was Journalism 101, I don't know what we called it back then, journalism class, and really liked the writing aspect. And for me, it was that, not so much, I'll say, not the creative storytelling writing in that sense, but more like the business writing aspect. And I really liked that, and that is something that kind of got me energized, and I declared PR. And I've been a comms person pretty much ever since graduating. So I'm really excited to be here and see what's happening and what you all are learning here at San Jose State. So thanks for having me.
Hello, I'm Sandy Fogle, and I work at Intuit. So my title is Principal Communicator. I work in employee communications. So I am the communications business partner for our CFO, Chief Financial Officer, and our CMO, Chief Marketing Officer. And I've worked at Intuit. I was there for 9 years, and I left for about 4, and I've been back for a year. So I've held a lot of different internal communication roles. I was a PR major here, minor in marketing, and all of my roles have pretty much been employee-focused, although I have done a little bit of external comms here and there. I'll stop there.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay. Well, let's welcome our panel, everybody.
Thank you.
So we have a lot of several graduating seniors in about 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and they're kind of, worrying about what that first job is going to be. So I'm going to throw this question out, and whoever wants to answer it can answer it, but tell us about how you landed your first job after college, if you could remember. whoever it was important at that time.
It was.
I can go first.
Okay.
Because I do remember, and it was through a professor at San Jose State. It was Dr. Briggs.
Oh, really?
There was somebody who was leaving. The company was National Semiconductor, and she called him and said, "Do you know of any student who would want to come work in corporate communications?" And I had kept in touch with him. So my theme would be connections, building relationships, staying in touch. And he recommended me, so she didn't even go out and interview anybody else. We connected, and I worked there. So
wow,
that's great. A plug for don't be afraid to use your network.
Yeah,
that's right.
For sure.
That's right.
I have an interesting story. So I started out one of my first jobs while I was in college was working at Starbucks. And, Starbucks is a front facing, it's a lot of customer interaction. And I was working the morning shift, so we had to be there at 4:30 to open the store. We opened the doors at 5. And there was this guy who would come in, and he'd be waiting for us to open. I'm like, what's going on? He's like, I just got back from Vietnam. I'm doing this with my company, this and that. And what are you studying in college? I was like, marketing communications. He's like, that's great. I'm going to need you. And it's just like talking with like interesting people who are also excited. And I think maybe less than a year later, he hired me to be like marketing communications for a semiconductor company out here in San Jose. So I would just say, make sure that you're networking everywhere you're at. It doesn't matter if you're, at Starbucks or at a restaurant job. You're making connections there. Just make sure that you're, making eye contact and making meaningful conversation, and people will remember you, and that helps build your network.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting too, because for me, I got my job about 2 months after I graduated, getting into an agency. As I look back, I realized that it seems super competitive because you feel like you need like high fancy internships in order to land agency jobs, and that was not me at all. I worked a year at DBH, and that was really the internship experience I had. Granted, I did, to that point of like networking, one of the things I think really helped me that seemed kind of chaotic is taking advantage of being in the Bay Area, which we have a lot of startups, a lot of small businesses, a lot of people who are looking to grow and do interesting new things. I think I ended up finding this guy on Craigslist, and he had this startup. It was like right when Tinder was starting to take off, and he had this dating app idea, and we ended up meeting at like some startup dojo, which was like a workspace, and he was like, I'm looking to just bring in influencers essentially, and it was a chance to not be in a really like constricted, like saying, here's your role, here's what you need to do, but more freewheeling of, here's my problem, help me fix it. There's no right answer because I don't know what the answer is. So it allowed me, granted it was free, but allowed me to work with him and kind of figure out some of those PR challenges that I use day to day. I think some things like that helped me get my first job coming out of San Jose State, which is piecing together of realizing, hey, this thing that I'm building is essentially a media list. And I didn't fully understand a media list, but now I can talk through the thought that goes into a day-to-day activity that is essential for someone like an intern or AC when you get out of San Jose State. So networking is so massive, and it's definitely a benefit here on San Jose State campus, or even just the community at large. There's people who want to tap into people's expertise, and you have that expertise, so taking advantage of that.
I would say mine was a little less connecting with people and sort of more of a traditional looking for a job. It started with, I went into actually the Career Center at San Jose State, and I found a job that I was looking for a part-time role as I was getting ready to graduate. So I really needed just something to fill between graduation or between classes and then graduating. So I got this job, a local company, a tech company, and I worked there for a good year and a half. And then unfortunately I got laid off, and I'm like, okay, now what am I going to do, right? So I went and back to the newspaper back in the day. Now you use LinkedIn, thank you. But I found a job for our media relations coordinator at Logitech, which is the mouse company. And I applied and got the job. And again, all I had was some sort of, I would say some experience in a marketing communications role, at a part-time role. And then I applied for that and I got it. And it turned out to be kind of that, I would say, pivotal moment in my career in terms of setting me off in really more of a pure communications PR path. And I'm super grateful for that experience because, again, had I not been laid off, I wouldn't have been looking, and I wouldn't have found that role at Logitech. And it really, again, set me sort of off and running in a PR career. So.
Okay, I think everyone went to San Jose State except Ayana. We won't hold that
I didn't
against
graduate. I did
She did go, but she
That's right,
graduated
she can't.
here.
In fact, we think
Yeah.
she might have been in my class, but we don't know for sure. I don't remember, and she doesn't remember. So can you share an experience at San Jose State or in college that helped you prepare for your career after graduation? Was there a particular class? Is there a particular club? Particular project?
I want to say, I know we were talking about it earlier, I can't remember the exact class number. I want to say PR 192.
Yeah.
Focused on actual PR document writing.
Oh.
I think that was massively helpful going into work. It allowed me to dive in, and it was like you created your briefing document for your executive. We talked about different documents that will be needed, whether it's agency or in-house. That was super helpful, and I think diving into the world, at least for me, and especially in the agency world, a lot of the classes that I took resembled a lot of what we'll do for new business, and that's part of the role that you have as an agency, but that class really helped for the other like 80% of the role that I'll do, which is day-to-day client work. So that was massively helpful that I could take learnings from that class and directly apply it like a year later.
It's probably 190 or 191.
190 or 190.
190,
Like
yeah.
Or the numbers.
Right.
Courses.
Right, right.
I had a really interesting class. At the time, I thought I was fully annoyed by it, but it was, and I don't know if you still offer it here on campus. It's like social research or something about
yes.
research and social sciences or something to that effect. So it was a research class, right? And it was part of that curriculum for PR. And I took that class and I was like, why am I doing this? We had to like cold call people and do almost like an individual cold call survey for a specific topic. And at the time I thought, this is so strange. Why am I doing this? And you did all this compilation of research. Fast forward to my job today at Cisco. So much of what we do is research. Like learning, figuring out what are people talking about, what are media writing about, what's happening in the broader world around us. And that really helps to inform the communication strategies that we all ultimately put in place to support the business. So I had no idea how that was going to be relevant at the time. And, you know, you're just young and you have never experienced a broader work setting. And now I totally get it. And I tell people about that class all the time because it just didn't seem to make sense at the time, and now it resonates in my day-to-day job. So yeah.
So mine's not a class. So is everybody PRSSA in here?
Are you all members?
So we kind of took a little hiatus the last few years because of COVID, and we were all on Zoom. And Kaylee, where are you, Kaylee? Has tried to resurrect it. This is probably the biggest PRSSA meeting we've had.
Nice. Nice.
But anyway, was it PRSSA?
So my PRSSA experience is everything to me. We had quite a really active club. I was vice president.
Oh, nice.
And part of that role was bringing in speakers and then connecting students with professionals.
Right.
I was connected with somebody, I connected myself, since it was my program, with somebody from Hewlett Packard. Who ended up being my manager for my second job. So she called me after I had that first job and said, do you want to come work for me? That never would have happened had it not been part of PRSSA, and being able to choose speakers and connect people kind of allowed me to see what was out there and helped me kind of crystallize that I didn't want to go the agency route. Yeah. That's kind of pushed in my day. It was kind of like, I'll go work for a PR agency, and I just, that was kind of what I was wanting to do. So that's where that organization. And my three best friends today are the three other officers.
Oh, that's great.
So Renee Siegel.
Oh, yeah.
So Renee and I.
You all know. A lot of you know Renee.
She was secretary of the group. Ironically, the other two were top of the class, and one is now a pilot, and one is a flight attendant.
Oh my goodness,
Oh, wow.
that is funny.
Wow.
Soar. I think there's
Renee,
a theme. Soar.
Renee taught here for
Yeah.
she just left like a year or two ago. Yeah, she was excellent. She was really
awesome.
So Charlene, I'm going to bring this up. You were on our student agency. Says we've got several students that are from the agency. So what was that experience like being? And you were in this room, right?
I was in this room. It was my year was the first year that opened, so everything smelled super new, and it was like, where are we going to go? How do we dive into this new world of in this classroom and take advantage of it? I think the agency, it's so fascinating, interesting, because it's your first step into working with actual clients. So I worked, trying to remember I feel like I worked on a bunch, and I think I have them still linked and mentioned on my LinkedIn. But some of them were like businesses locally. There's one that stuck in my head, Live On, which was super cool. It's not around anymore, but it's the idea of like a time capsule online. Love this idea. But then also you have San Jose State as a client. So we worked with the theater department and someone else, but it was, I think, super helpful. Like I mentioned, it's probably one of the biggest reasons I was able to boost my resume and get interviews without like interviewing at any large notable place. And it's because specifically you're able to dig in and practice those skills that you're learning in class and in a place that doesn't require you to leave campus or have to commute or find new time to work within the agency somewhere else. So that was super helpful. I think that's the biggest thing that's most helpful for DVH. And as I listen to the things that come out of people's school experience is the skills you're able to apply, not so much what you know, but how you learn. That's, I think, stands out so much for myself when I first started the career. When I interview people now, it's people coming out of schools and especially interns and ACs. You can think of like, oh, I did all these things and look at this big project I worked on. It's really, okay, what was the process like? And that is what DVH allowed me to do so much more, which is, it was messy. It wasn't necessarily the most cleanest, but you hit a challenge and you kind of have to problem solve. Like, okay, what do we need to deliver to the client? How do I figure out how to get to that point? Who do I need to talk to? How do I source information? Things like that. And that allowed me to build those skills necessary.
Okay. Oh, that's okay. Thank you. So we're coming out of this pandemic. I mean, it's 3 years of it. We were on Zoom for education and, Zoom conferencing, web conferencing, WebEx, all these different things.
WebEx, yeah.
So, what advice would you give students on how to navigate this new world where like only 30% of the people are going to the office? And if you go on an interview, you don't really meet the person and, you don't really meet them in person. And if you get a job, chances are you're not going to be going to a team, So what kind of advice would any of you give on that?
Yikes.
Well, I actually started at Hack the Hood right in the middle of the pandemic. So I'm coming up on 2 years. The office had already changed to being virtual. It used to be, we used to have an office in downtown Oakland where we'd be able to host learning and workshops. And so since everything was virtual, my interview was virtual. I didn't get a chance to meet any of the local team members until maybe a couple months after I had started working. And so what we really did was make sure that we intentionally created everybody go on a walk at this time and call in and we'll just talk about what we're seeing outside or talk about something special in your day. And I think we did that because we weren't able to create an office culture and that community that you build when you're in an office with somebody and you're sitting next to them and be like, hey, have you, did you see this weekend or something, And so we made it, and we intentionally created that space. And so I think it was a little bit of a challenge to let your personality show when you're being interviewed, because you're behind a screen and it's very formal kind of, and you're sitting there. But I would say, just kind of relax a little bit and be okay with letting a part of your personality show, because, I think people are tired of the stiffness and the rigidity of being behind a video camera all the time, or being on a Zoom or a WebEx or or in a Google Meet or something like that. So I would say it takes a little bit of extra effort to create that work culture, but it's definitely worth it.
I mean, I think if you're looking at networking, you're trying to get in person, I'm very much an in-person person. I love being in the office. I think it's super vital for growth and development and even building relationships with the people you work with. As you look, and especially graduating from San Jose State and looking to go out into the workplace, how do you build those connections, meet people when things feel super virtual? I think there's a hunger across everybody, like you're saying, they want to get out, they want to connect. It's just about trying to find those areas to connect. And so for you, I think you being thinking, what is it you want to do? Where do you want to lean in? Where do you want to show up more? And obviously I'm biased towards media, so I'm going to use media as an example. There's so many events in the Bay Area taking place, I think that are open to anyone to go to. And you can do that by linking up with people on LinkedIn, see what they're doing, and from that you can see what events they're going to.
Mm-hmm.
I use this example last week. San Francisco has an SFPR Summit, PR Press Club, and they hosted an event out of Mountain View, $20 ticket. They had 5 media journalists from Bloomberg, Reuters, VentureBeat, like top publications on stage, talking, chatting, and it's your chance to come listen to them. That room's full of journalists, full of PR people, and they have a networking hour. And so that's a chance to show up and be able to like talk with people in the industry in a less impactful way of where it's transactional in the sense of, hi, I'm looking for a job. Can you hire me? And it's a chance to build those kind of relationships. And I think about that too. Like Kaylee, we met at PRSA's Media Predicts Dinner, and that's the chance you sit at tables, you meet and chat with people. And as you're looking to build, at least before you get into the workplace, finding those small opportunities to get out there and try to network. And going back to like that first question, that's the tip I would have, is see what the opportunities are, because there's a bunch if you try to look for it a little bit outside of your general circle too.
And I do think, just building on that a little bit, it is very company specific. So if it's a smaller environment, there may be a lot of desire for the teams to get together in person, and they'll make that happen. I know from my perspective, I work and have lived in San Jose my entire life. And so Cisco's in San Jose, and I always went into the office, and by the end, right before pandemic, I was like 4 days a week in the office. So we were always kind of like a hybrid. We allowed remote work. You're always expected to get your work done. But with the pandemic, it's just shut everything down, and the office closed and nobody was going in. And now it's been really we have an organization, a team, Global Communications, and a leader who's based in the Bay Area. And her goal is really to bring at least the local team together once a week. And so Tuesdays we have lunch, right? She buys lunch for the team and we have it brought in and we all get together. I have to tell you, it's a very unproductive work day on those Tuesdays, but it's so good and it's so refreshing to go in there. And then I really feel for you all coming into this environment and this new way of work, because you don't have the benefit of just going into an office and networking day to day and learning from people sitting around you and bouncing ideas. So I think you have to be really creative in finding those ways to do that maybe we didn't have to do at graduation. But look for those companies that really make that a priority too. I think you'll get a lot more from that in-person interaction than maybe you realize.
I'm curious from your view, because I have this conversation a lot at work, that idea of like, oh, I go into the office, I'm so unproductive too. I'm trying to convince myself that I feel like, especially with the pandemic, we've shifted to the pandemic where we're remote and now we're in front of a screen 8 hours a day, and we're thinking if we don't sit at a computer and do 8 hours of work, it's unproductive, versus being in the office. Like, that's part of the benefit too.
Yeah.
You're in it, you're chatting, like,
you're learning from each other.
Talk with someone for an hour or 2 hours.
True.
That relationship builds, and I think that's such an interesting shift that I feel like I've noticed as a pandemic of so many people, and trying to pull people into like, oh, I'm so unproductive in the office.
Yeah.
But you can learn so much. Like, it's not
right.
tangible in the sense of like, here, look at all the deliverables I did.
Yes.
But then it feeds so much to that point of like,
you're absolutely right.
Let me learn, like, oh, I have this challenge that if I was in my bedroom, I would sit here and struggle and stuff. But I could just turn over and be like, hey, why doesn't this email work? I don't understand.
And then who might know? If you don't know, you can ask them and they can find out. And that doesn't involve pinging them on chat. Doesn't involve picking up a phone. Doesn't involve it. You could just turn and talk to each other.
Right? The idea of like turning and tapping someone
and say,
less
what do you
intrusive
do?
than like just
exactly. Then sorry to bother you. Right. So it's an interesting time for you, but just put yourself out there and don't be afraid. People are I think you'll find there's a lot of support from people who've been in career for a while. They want to bring new talent in and help you along. And I personally love to teach and share. So don't be shy. That would be my best advice.
Do you have a comment?
I can add on just a little bit.
Sure, go ahead.
So Intuit is asking people to come in 2 days a week, so you have that nice balance of working and collaborating and still being more productive from get work done. COVID was awesome from one standpoint, because it did eliminate a lot of the stress of
the driving
back and forth, and people started bringing their whole selves to work because you had your pets, your kids, your house was behind you, and my whole attire became half zips and sweats, and everybody's attire became
Yeah.
Everybody's attire changed.
I know.
It's
Very
nice because it allowed you to actually connect with people in a different way. But one thing that I realized, I've always worked for a global company. So obviously I didn't travel to India and Israel and different European countries, and yet I still was able to build relationships. And we were always on Zoom or WebEx or whatever the platform is. And I think you just had to make the extra effort. So even during COVID and beyond now, getting used to slacking people or asking those questions and setting up the one-on-ones, having the
That's a good one.
coffee chat, or we do also let's connect while we walk our dogs during the day and making that time to do it.
Yeah.
Because it's hard, but I don't know. For me, it was kind of a really nice. I didn't realize how burned out,
How much you needed it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Until we had
Yeah.
a forced break.
Yeah. So I think it's
like the 2 years. The 2 days a week is like that.
Yeah. I agree.
Does everybody go the same 2 days a week or no?
So
So is that good?
it's up to the manager. The company hasn't designated the day, so the global comms team comes in Wednesdays. Now we're Wednesdays in Mountain View.
Yeah, same. It's like San Jose, but we're geographically dispersed. So
Yeah, and the other day is
Yeah.
your choice. So I go to our San Francisco office
nice.
on Tuesdays because it's a little bit closer to where I live.
Nice.
So I'm going to ask one more question right now. So then I want to open it up to some of you. So I'm going to give you that. I'm going to say one more question that I'm going to ask them, and you can think of some questions you might want to ask these seasoned professionals here. So can you tell us, I mean, you've all probably interviewed new employees, some interview do's and don'ts.
Yes.
Yes, go ahead.
Probably have that off the top.
I interviewed 3 people yesterday and one today for a contract role.
Uh-huh.
And I will just say, because the economy is like it is, there's a lot of layoffs. Companies are hiring contractors, so don't not look at that. It is a great way to get into a company.
That's a great point.
My previous contractor just got hired at Intuit, which is why I have a contractor role open right now. So that's one more tip.
That's a good idea.
But having interviewed people, and I have hired dozens of people over my career, and lots of interns and early career, the person I met with today just lacked energy and lacked desire to work at Intuit. She'd gotten laid off, so clearly wasn't in a good place. But when I asked the question, what are you looking for in your next move? Tell me about yourself. It was kind of I don't know, I'd really like a full-time job, but I'm open to whatever opportunity.
Yeah.
Well, you didn't really say you wanted to work at Intuit for me in employee comms, and the other 3 people I had interviewed
They were all in.
did.
Yeah.
And then my biggest pet peeve, I'll just say, when I was looking for an intern a couple of years ago, the number of errors on a resume as a communications person, or the inconsistency in the language, it does matter. So those little details, any resume that came across, I just would toss aside because it's not hard to have somebody else look at it.
Yeah.
So if you have to lie, just pretend that you really want the job. And then,
I think that's fine.
Anybody else, some do's and don'ts of
Go ahead.
interviews?
Oh,
If you had some thoughts.
don't.
Oh, I
Now
can
that
do
you
it.
have the
Yeah, I mean, I guess
microphone.
for me, I think it's to me it seems so basic, but to scan
I was
and
gonna say that.
Google or understand who you're interviewing with. Obviously, at my Hotwire, the number of people I've talked to that I start an interview with, and I find out, oh, you think I'm the travel company, is insane.
That's a
That
good
and also just the idea of having and I think it's gonna be a small sound bites of just who your customers are, or what is it that you do, or some type of acknowledgement that empowers you to have a smarter conversation than just here's my skills. It can be something as simple as look at for example, if you look at an agency, they'll usually have clients directly on. So if Cisco is a client, you can go quickly look and see what did Cisco show up in the news for.
Yep.
Oh, cool! I don't need to talk in depth, but I say, oh, I saw Cisco just announced a new networking router. Did you guys work on that? How did that come through? You stood out already beyond. So I say that's definitely my recommendation there. And then the don'ts. I don't think I have a massive standout for the don't. I think it's just definitely flagging your skills. I think for me, it's more my icks is when I talk in an interview, especially for ACs and interns, there's a difference between, I think, confidence and coming in and feeling like I know what I'm doing and I feel confident in the skills I have and what I can offer you, and cockiness and feeling I just graduated in PR, so I know everything there is to know about PR. And it's a hard line, I think, to straddle, but I think especially for that role, interviewing and trying to assess, like, is this person open to coaching and like know what they know and know what they don't know, or is this person thinking that they know it all and isn't necessarily as open to coaching? And it's hard to straddle that line, but there's a that's the line for me, that's the line.
Yeah. Anyone else?
I'll just plus one with the energy. Make sure that, do a couple jumping jacks before you get on the screen or something to get your energy up. So, but not out of breath, right? Yeah. But
not like
just
you're
so you
late.
have like a good amount of energy going. You don't want to talk to somebody who's like just rolled out of bed or something like that. Also doing the research behind the company and knowing what company you want to work with, and maybe even presenting an idea like, oh, I thought of this is also really great. I had interviewed somebody who had an idea for connecting with our alumni from our programs, and it was a great idea, and we actually went with it and we let her like spearhead it. So I mean, if you have a good idea, you could share it. I think that's good, and having good energy. Don't swear. That's a don't.
Oh.
Somebody said, drop the F-bomb a couple of times in the interview. And he's like, yeah, my wife just wants me to get out of the house. I was like,
You said,
Yes, so just kind of know your audience and be cool and professional as well. So, those are my reasons.
All right, I just have, so the whole dress thing has changed so much.
Dress code.
So when you interview, prospective candidates, what do you expect them to wear? I mean, it used to be you would wear your business suit, right, and you go in, and men would wear a tie, and that has totally changed.
Totally.
So what are you looking for?
I would also say it's also very company dependent and industry dependent.
Right.
So if you're going to go in and interview for a financial services company, they're pretty buttoned up, right? So you want to come in and dress to impress, so to speak. Guys, it might mean a tie. It might just mean a sports coat and a nice shirt. And women, you can again just dress like you would for maybe a nice brunch, but not too casual, not your sundress per se, but just, take it up a notch. And then in tech, it's really company dependent, but, we wear jeans now. I used to come to work every day in a either dress or slacks, and then Fridays were jean day, right? But now it's like jeans and then a cute top. That's completely acceptable, right? For interviewing, I think just show up a little bit more like you're there to dress to impress. So,
And anyone else?
I'm going to agree with that.
Yeah.
I personally don't care what people wear, but I think my advice would be is, lose the hoodie.
Yeah, I would agree.
And put on some nicer top. Mm-hmm. If you're on Zoom, it doesn't really matter.
No.
On WebEx, it doesn't really matter what you have on all of that. But you can't ever be criticized for being overdressed. And you can be if you're
or underdressed.
So I think that rule still kind of applies.
Yeah.
But definitely you don't need the suit look at all. But
Okay, good advice. All right, I'm opening it up. These four ladies are here to take your questions. Brianne.
Hi, I'm Brianne. So earlier you guys talked about talking in the office and how when you go out of office it kind of hinders some of your coworkers productivity. I just wanted to ask what's the culture like at each of your companies, and how does it help or hinder your own productivity? If that makes sense.
Well, like I said, we had a weekly check-in where it was not a check-in where you need to check in on your work because we have a team meeting for that. But it's this is our meeting where somebody can go on a walk, or maybe somebody's doing yoga or whatever, or relaxing, but you don't have to be in front of your computer screen. So it's like a call-in kind of meeting. We also have when I first started, we had no meeting Wednesdays, so it was like no meetings at all.
Yeah.
Like don't schedule a meeting on Wednesday, right? And then now we have every other Friday off, which is great, so we get long
That's
weekends,
nice.
it's like twice a month.
Mm-hmm.
And then if it's a holiday on a Monday, that's an extra long weekend. We also do like one-on-ones. We have a Slack channel for like random stuff where we share like recipes or a movie that we saw or astrological, what's your zodiac kind of stuff. So we keep it like fun, but we also have like certain hours that we work, and also like don't message or send emails after 6 o'clock or before 8 o'clock in the morning and expect a response. Like we have that, it's like baked into our work culture. So it's like we promote like being healthy also, so you're not like overworking yourself, and knowing that it's a work-life balance, and we respect that.
Yeah. That's a great example. One of the things that Cisco's been really, I would say, passionate about from the executive leadership at the CEO level all the way down is this whole idea of taking care of yourself and mental health and wellness. And, that really came to light in the, I think even before the pandemic. There's been a lot of very, I would say, visible and well-known suicides of celebrities and musicians and others, frankly. So it really opened up a conversation inside of our company and has really provided, I would say, a place where people can be comfortable being who they are and knowing that they'll be supported, whether it's through a manager who's going to support them if they're dealing with something particularly challenging or a stressful life situation, or even just the pure, I would say, benefit and resources that we offer our employees for mental health and wellness is really important. So if you hear that from a company and that's important to you, then it's probably a company you should go talk to and is worth considering.
Mm-hmm. We have another one.
And don't be afraid to ask that. Like, what's your work culture like?
Yeah, work-life balance.
Right.
Yeah, what's your work-life balance? Do you guys take Fridays off? Ask about the work culture, because you're going to be integrating into it.
Yeah.
One thing I think I'll add to that, and I don't know if I'm coming through, I'll talk loudly, is I think work culture is super important, but I think what's also important to keep in mind when you join a company is you're contributing to that culture.
Mm-hmm.
I think so often, especially with it being remote or hybrid work, so many people come in and they're like, I wish we did more fun things, or company should say this, or we should do this more. You can be, especially once you join an organization, like feeling comfortable enough in the culture that you can drive part of that, and people I think are hungry for it. So at like Hotwire, we have Slack channels, we have conversations open to people sparking it, and you never know, so many people have the same feelings. Like I want to say last year, for example, I don't know if you guys saw it, there was like this trending thing online of taking a picture of the inside of your refrigerator, and people in the workplace have to guess whose fridge that is.
Oh, that's funny.
I saw it, and I'm like, I don't know, let me see if anyone's interested. Yeah. Didn't get anyone's response. I got like one person. I posted it in the North America channel. Blew up. It was insane. And all of a sudden, everyone wants to participate. Like, all of North America is like, who's doing this? I thought I was going to get in trouble because productivity would be down. But it was just the perfect thing to drive a bit more of that culture. So I think identifying, like, what are your values? Mm-hmm. And then from that, you're able to kind of map a little bit of what the activity and how does that map into the values then, too.
That's a good one.
Okay. Okay. So something that's really important to me is finding a company that I feel like fits within my morals and values. And so I was going to ask, is that something that's important to you guys and something that you search for? And like, what specific values and morals are the ones that you are searching for?
Interesting.
Good question.
That is a good question.
I'm happy to start with that one, because it is the reason I went back to Intuit, because it is a very values-based company. The culture is the secret sauce. We've had the same values we're a 40-year-old company this year. We've had the same values for like the last 20. Just tweaked them over the years. Integrity without compromise is right up there. And as an employee for all these years, I can honestly say, like, I trust Intuit to do the right thing. Yeah. Like, they would never cross the line. That's important to me. And then there's the other value that's been there from day one is we care and give back. So it's a volunteerism program. And we provide employees with time, and we match donations for people to work with the charity of their choice. And then there's a lot of we have a week of service, a lot of, and because we also have products for small businesses. We also have a lot of opportunities to work with small businesses. So all of that is something that I care a lot about. The other values are like customers, and we're very customer focused. But so I think Intuit's one of the few companies, Hewlett Packard was as well, that really lives their values, like a high say-do ratio. A lot of companies, the other couple that I worked at in between, it's a poster on a wall, and we rolled it out, and then that's kind of a check in the box. Intuit's kind of really commended. So I think if that's important to you, asking about the values and how it shows up in the workplace, ask for examples.
Yeah. That's a good one.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I don't think I knew what value, I didn't know what values I cared about. I don't even think I cared about values for my first job. I went into a new agency, was there for a couple of years. It was fine. It didn't fully sit right with me, and eventually I ended up leaving and coming to Hotwire. And I remember the first day I got to Hotwire, they did like a all team hands like monthly meeting. And I remember they put, so the agency I was at, you could slowly see it was like something's happening because we were having layoffs. It feels like every other month. It feels really skeptical. We feel like the business isn't doing well. We don't know how the business is doing. There's a lot of questions that you felt like you couldn't get answers to. Stepping into Hotwire, literally the first day, I feel like, stepped in, on the board is like, here's how the business is doing, our budgets, our results, our revenue. And one of the values that comes at Hotwire was like transparency and realizing that, like, there it is. Like, I didn't know what values I cared about coming out of San Jose State, but then as I transferred different workplaces or as I built those experiences, I learned that's a big one for me versus other ones like, it makes me sound bad, but like giving back, I know that's a big value for some people. That's not the biggest value for me, so that's not how. So the experience is what helped me kind of carve out a bit more of here's what I matter, and that's helps you figure out, what business it is that you care about.
And I think as you gain your work experience, your values change and you develop what you like. You have more of a sense of who yourself is. Because you're growing with an organization. Maybe this isn't fit here. Maybe you want to do something else. You take these parts of these different organizations, these things that you like, and you're like, okay, so if I could think of the best place that I would work, it would have these values in it. And I think right now I love what I do. We work with 16 to 25-year-old Black, Latinx, Asian Americans, and Indigenous young people and teach them how to get into tech. And I'm able to use my graphic design skills and also work with young people. And that's a huge value for me because I was in substitute teaching and doing graphic design. And so now I get to merge all of the things that I like to do together. We're unapologetic about who we serve. And it's a purpose for it because there's a lack of diversity in the tech landscape. And we're, trying to change that one person at a time. But, it was through working at different organizations and learning I don't like this. Something feels weird. So there's lack of transparency here. And asking questions a little bit, like, how come it's like this? Or why don't we do this? And they're like, no, we don't do it like that, And I'm like, oh, okay, well, start looking for a job. But you learn and grow as you, as you get older and you get more experience.
Completely agree.
Okay, thanks. We have a question from one of the students.
Yeah, speaking of on experience, since you all are being transparent with us, I'm curious about, as you look around the office and you look around your teams and the people you work with every day, what are some of those character traits or those personality types that you just appreciate being in a part of their team or seeing them every day?
Yeah.
It's my favorite thing.
Yeah.
I love questions, and I love smart questions, especially in smart questions being like, hey, I have access to resources, I don't understand this, or can you explain this a bit more, versus being that yes person. So I have a few people on my team who are really great at asking questions or not just taking what I tell them to do and going and trying to interpret it. And then the other part is they also then, when they share things back with me or will share a flag or observation, they'll share their mindset and what they're thinking. And that allows me to understand more how they approached a problem. And I see those people who share that thinking adapt a lot quicker and grow a lot faster because they're able to address oh, I'm thinking about this incorrectly versus my answer was correct or wrong. And so those people are my favorite people to work with, and I'm lucky enough to have multiple of those on my team.
I would say what I really appreciate are employees that are resourceful. And not that you have to know everything or have the answer to every question you have, but be proactive in going and searching out information and coming to the table with what you've learned and an informed point of view. Whether or not, it doesn't have to be right or wrong. It's just coming into it with doing some homework and putting some thought into it. So resourcefulness, I think I really appreciate, and openness and transparency. That's a value that Cisco also appreciates. So coming to the table when you have a question and saying, hey, this is why I'm asking, this is why I want to know. Be very forthcoming, I think that's, for me at least, that's something I really appreciate.
Yeah, I'll add the resourcefulness, scrappy, and just the person who says yes. Like, I have somebody want to do a short video, can you edit the video? She said yes. She actually didn't know how.
Yeah.
She went back and
figured it out. Yeah.
And I didn't find out till later. That she just didn't know how.
That's exactly it.
It was just a nice surprise of willing to just put yourself out there and try it.
Jump in.
Yeah, and I asked her if she wanted to present to one of our executives, and she was 2 months in, and I thought she'd say, I said, I'm happy to do it. Unless she wanted to, she's like, I'll do it. I'm like, great.
Enthusiasm.
So, Jeannie, we've got about 5. Were you going to make a comment? Sure, go ahead.
I appreciate the people that I appreciate on my team are the ones that are like, oh, I just wanted to check in and see how you're doing.
That's nice.
That's always nice. It's a human touch, since we're all behind a screen, and then, we're only together like once or twice a week during our team meeting, and you don't schedule one-on-ones, but maybe they Slack you, hey, I just want to check in and see how you're doing.
Yeah.
You said you were going to go do this. Did you go and do that? Did you check out this? And so that's like the coffee or the the water cooler chat or something. Just making a point to connect with your staff or your employees or your coworkers is nice. It's a nice
Yeah.
So we have a few minutes. Oh, good. We have another question. Perfect.
Haley here.
Thank you.
With AI rolling out and earning a seat at the table, do you see any change in process at your organization, and how would you recommend us adapt to that work field?
Exciting times. Let me just say that. Yeah.
What did you call it?
Yeah. I said exciting times.
I know.
I know.
Yeah. I mean, I have to tell you, so when we started hearing about AI, all a buzz, particularly late last year, it's been something we've been talking about and hearing about for so long, but late last year when it really started to come into play, I started thinking, okay, well, what does that mean and how is that going to affect us? And you do all the reading and you kind of understand what's happening. But then fast forward to literally the last month at our company, at Cisco, we have really had to put, I'll say, a framework in place for employees across the business that says, AI is super exciting, we're all in. It's an opportunity to innovate as a technology company. There's so much opportunity from that point of view, but we have to do it in a smart, informed, and safe way. So what we've had to do is sort of take everybody to say, take a step back. You need to be thoughtful about what you're asking and entering the system, because it's like basically you could go in there and say, Cisco's going to report earnings next Tuesday, and they're going to report revenue of, $20 billion. And help me write the press release for that. Okay, guess what you've just done? You've just released all of that information out into this massive AI ecosystem. So that's what the company's really trying to get its arms around at large, is how we can use it effectively, safely in all of our jobs. So we're putting a lot of, I would say, sort of guidelines in place to help do that, and then building out our own internal systems that will help us enter information safely and get access and feedback back. So
same exactly with Intuit.
Yeah.
We actually have a little bit more controls from a profession standpoint. My advice, and we did this as a team as well, is you should know how to use it. You should know
absolutely.
what it is. So we, at home, just playing with it. I would encourage any technology in all platforms. That's one of the advantages like you have is coming to the table with knowing so many different technologies. AI is going to be one of them. I think it's TBD to know how it
changes
everything. Our careers, our fields, and we may be the first ones to actually really use it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's now at this stage, with not access to privileged information, like exploring, playing with it, because knowing it is going to have some kind of impact on our careers eventually, even if it's 5 or 10 years down. So getting there's that advantage, early adoption advantage now to be able to learn and quickly play around with it. But watching the framework of what you add in. But I think I used it to refresh a resume, for example. Hey, here's this job posting. How do I what are some bullets that might capture that? It's helpful, I think, in that standpoint. I think it's also curious and from an agency perspective of just seeing what gets spit back out to me as far as an SEO or hey, when I look up Hotwire or who's the top agencies to work for, it's curious to see how does your client's information or your own information show up and is regurgitated by this AI, and eventually I can see that. Then I'm just waiting for the client to be hey, how do I impact what they're talking about me and ChatGPT saying about me, things like that. Hasn't happened yet, but I know we've had business inquiries come from ChatGPT and things like that. So it's definitely coming. So now it's playing with it. I don't think it's going to have a massive impact for right now, but it's something that will, who knows how, but it will impact something.
Yeah, and our organization, so since we're on the front lines where we're teaching the young people how to use technology and get into the tech field, we're actually developing a component in our curriculum about ChatGPT and the pros and cons, the ethical use of it, and so that our learners can have a critical lens on using these different technologies. And if they were going to build something knowing the pros and cons of using AI and what effects it might have. So we're using a lens on it as well.
I think everybody's just so surprised at how fast it's taking off. I keep hearing people say, oh yeah, we really don't need to worry about that for about a year. It's a month from now. So it's literally, as it started to take off, it's gaining incrementally momentum beyond anybody's expectations. So it's exciting.
Okay, I think with that we can wrap it up unless you wanted to say any last words before we get started with our career workshop. I just want to thank Professor Chris Disalvo and our esteemed panelists for joining us today at Prepare to Soar.
Thank you.